everyone, I'm glad you've enjoyed my previous video on magical stones and crystals for Taoist weather magic. I've been getting quite a lot of people coming forward as of late to ask questions and to get advice on such topics, and obviously there appears to be a growing interest in these more obscure methods, and it certainly feels awesome to be a pioneer of them. Summer has truly arrived here in England right now. The weather is fantastic and the conditions are perfect for environmental occultism. So if you're thinking about practicing weather magic or nature magic for the very first time, now is the time to start forthwith. In this video, I will explain the meaning of the 4 celestial animals of Feng Shui. It's been a long time coming, I must admit. I've mentioned them in many videos before, but I've always held back giving all the information because I wanted to dedicate a full video to them. So let's get right into it. So, the 4 celestial animals, sometimes referred to as the 4 symbols. They are a group of mythological creatures with connections to the Chinese constellations. And they consist of the green dragon of the east, the black tortoise of the north, the white tiger of the west, and the red vermilion bird of the south. Now sometimes there is a 5th animal known as the yellow snake or yellow dragon of the center, where all the different energies meet at one point, but most of the time you'll usually end up just seeing the 4. They each represent different aspects of the 4 seasons, the 4 directions, the elements of fire, wood, metal, water, and earth if you want to include the snake, and all of them relate to the Bagua and its triagrams, and they are particularly useful in Feng Shui, especially in the landscape and position of a house or altar. You see, there are certain kinds of mountain ranges. Some are beneficial, whilst others bring misfortune, and they surround your property. There are 2 kinds of houses in Feng Shui, the Yin house and the Yang house. Both require different methods. A house used by living occupants is Yang, whilst a space reserved for the dead, think of tombs and graveyards, is Yin. The 4 animals are used to balance the Chinese 5 elements and to regulate the forces of yin and yang. And in order for this to work, they all need to work together in harmony. And this is what will create a sacred space within a home or an altar. But if one of the guardians become overly strong or particularly weak, this can cause some serious trouble. So let's start off with the white tiger of the west. Now the white tiger of the west is a representation of all mammals, all animals with fur and hair. If used correctly, the tiger can protect your home from dangers that are associated with aggressive spirits that may wish to harm you. Its element is metal, and metal of course relates to the lungs, which in Western terms makes it fairly somewhat similar to the element of air due to the connection with breath. Its planet is Venus. Its season is autumn, and in Taoism, autumn is the time where the yang of summer begins to become a little more yin. The leaves begin to wither and fall, and the natural order of things begins to slow down a little bit in preparation for the coming winter. The direction of west is also very important because within the Bagua system, the triagram is Dua, meaning lake, and in my weather magic, western wind is a strong wind, and during the autumn season it's usually associated with good fortune. You're going to want to make sure that you work with the beneficial winds and avoid those that are not so helpful. In alchemic Taoism, the tiger represents sensation and what is known as the corporeal soul. Basically our animal instincts and our urges and desires. As mentioned earlier, it has a lot of connection with the lungs. Taoists believe in 2 different kinds of souls, the Po, corporeal, and Hun, meaning ethereal. Hun controls the yang spirits within the body, whilst Po works with the yin. In Feng Shui, a lot of masters will recommend having a statue or a plaque of the white tiger to protect the home from criminals, thieves from entering the property. See, protection is key here. For this to be effective, the tiger should be placed in the right portion of the home, in the west of the living room. If you can afford it, I would really recommend purchasing some energy-infused Feng Shui. It'll definitely help you out. In the mythology, it is said that the tiger's tail had become white when it had reached the age of 500. So what are my personal experiences with the white tiger of the West? Well, they go back a good decade when I first started getting involved in Chinese magic. I was very new to the world of the occult, and I had just created my first outdoor altar, the one I still use right now, called the Altar of the Seven Stars, and I wanted some protection against intruding spirits, and the tiger was incredibly effective, but only when I paired it with the other animals. You see, you can't use the tiger alone, or at least you shouldn't. Doing so could bring you some serious harm. If anyone ever tells you that practicing high magic is safe or without risk, they are obviously not considering the potential for disaster that can come with working with certain gods, and especially the weather. In my opinion, you can never be totally safe, but you can take steps to make sure that things go a little more smoothly. And one of them is using the protecting energy of the white tiger. But you've got to be very careful. The tiger does not get overly powerful, otherwise it could bring harm to you. It is the job of the green dragon of the East to control the white tiger, which brings me on to the next animal. The green dragon of the East is the representation of all fish and lizard-like animals. If used properly, the dragon can bring forth prosperity and wealth. It's agreed by most within the Taoist system that the green dragon is associated with the ultimate yang energy, the masculine and powerful qi that I personally very much enjoy interacting with. Although it may surprise you, the season corresponding with our dragon here isn't summer, it's actually spring. As some Taoists would say, the time of spring is the time to release like a fast arrow from a bow, a lively, exciting period where life blooms and newness grows. Using all of the qi that we have stored during the darker winter months, now is the time to put that qi to good use by being more active. And the dragon is also deeply associated with the element of wood, and for very good reason. In the Chinese system, wood is related to growth and abundance. Of course, its planet being Jupiter, which I'm sure most of my occult friends are familiar with Jupiter being the planet of abundance. Wood has the vibe of imagination and liveliness to it, but it isn't as yang as fire. You see, it can go both ways. If wood chooses to manifest in more of a yang state, it will be green in color and it will be more sturdy. But if it chooses to manifest in more of a yin state, it will appear blue and be more flexible. The green dragon guards the eastern direction in weather magic, and the force of an eastern wind is known as a baby wind. If it blows during the spring equinox, it is generally quite positive. In terms of Taoist alchemy, the dragon is associated with the Hun ethereal spirit, unlike the white tigers, which is the Po. And it's also connected with the imagination. Now, I think that most of you will agree with me that when it comes to the imagination, regardless of whatever path you are on or whichever deities you are working with, I think we can all agree on one thing: the imagination is divine, and using it in spirituality is absolutely needed to make that beautiful connection. So just for that one reason alone, I do hold the green dragon of the East in very high regard. The triagram associated with the dragon is shun, meaning wind, and its related organ is the liver. Now, my personal experiences with the dragon have all been extremely positive. Right now I'm in the position where I should be able to buy my dream car in the next few weeks if everything goes according to plan. So those wealth enhancement rituals are obviously working. And one important thing that I have noticed quite recently: in the days of the Three Kingdoms, Zhuge was known as Wolong. And when you translate the name Wolong, it means sleeping or crouching dragon. So if you are new here, Zhuge is my spirit guide and master, and I feel like a lot of the dragon energies are connected to him because of that historical name. So yes, it is important to me. I mentioned earlier that the dragon has to control the white tiger, and this means that if you have a statue of both creatures, make sure the white tiger is smaller than the green dragon. There's a lot to consider to make sure that the qi is harmonious. Now, onto the Black Tortoise of the North, sometimes called the Dark Warrior. It is a representation of all animals with shells, but I'll let you into something here very, very fascinating. I've never mentioned this before. The Black Tortoise is actually two creatures. It's a tortoise with a snake entwined together, wrapped around one another. It's very interesting. The tortoise corresponds to water, and water's planet is Mercury. In Taoist thought, water is the flow of the Tao itself, infinitely flexible, able to mold and shape itself to any surface or area, and it can be used to cleanse stagnant energy, and it can also be used to wash away doubts with weather magic by summoning rain, giving it a type of healing quality. Taoist sages often go exploring and searching for rivers or streams, listening to the subtle sounds of the water. The more quiet and gentle the sound, the more lucky the area is for rituals. These connections make the tortoise the most yin and feminine animal of the four, with winter as its season, the downtime period of storing qi into the kidneys and going into a kind of energetic hibernation. Winter is the season of taking it easy and being careful not to use too much qi, not to overexert your own energy basically. But the direction of north in Taoist weather magic is anything but calm and relaxing. The northern wind is known as a very strong wind, but it is mostly positive if it blows during the early winter solstice. The tortoise's triagram is kun, meaning water, and its subcolor is black. I mentioned previously how important the subcolor of black is for ceremonial robes, especially if you want to create noticeable change in the weather. For example, when summoning a rainstorm, ancient Taoists would sometimes paint their faces black to encourage dark clouds to manifest. And in alchemic terms, the tortoise relates to a person's jue, meaning will and their attention, and once again the corporeal Po soul. In Feng Shui, it is best to place the tortoise at the back of a property. Doing this brings serenity, peace, and stability. It's very common to see the tortoise placed in yin homes. You'll often see a giant shell near a grave or a tomb. They are called turtleback tombs, used for longevity of living relatives. Now, my experiences with the Black Tortoise of the North have been very interesting. I would say the whole vibe around it is very mysterious and enigmatic. It has a very dark energy to it. This past winter, I dedicated a lot of time to working with the Dark Warrior, and I came away feeling very relaxed, very calm and collected actually. And sometimes you want that peace and that quiet to deal with certain challenges that might come along. Whenever I encounter a problem or a difficult situation, I will always try to hold on to my zen, my state of serenity, my flow, whatever you want to call it. And that's what the tortoise brings. Something else that is apparent to me when I work with a Dark Warrior, I always feel compelled to practice magic at night, which is usually not the best time to get accurate readings from the weather, because obviously it's harder to see the cloud patterns and to read the omens in the darkness. It's easier for me to practice during the day, but with a tortoise, I feel the darkness calling me. It's certainly strange, but I've learned not to question it, but rather just to flow with it. So now let's get on to my favorite of the four animals, the Red Vermilion Bird. We all have our favorites, right? We all have our preferences, and even though you are meant to work with all four of the animals, you can't help but be drawn to a certain one. And for me, it's always been the Red Vermilion Bird. So the red bird represents all feathered animals, all birds. And remember, what is the most sacred object, my prized possession, that I carry absolutely everywhere I go? My trusty Kongming feathered fan, of course. And very briefly, whilst we're on the subject of the feathered fan, I constantly get asked the same question by most of my viewers. Why is it that you carry the fan? What does it mean to you? And I'm going to leave you in suspense and mystery for the time being, but rest assured I will be back and I will explain it. However, it does have a lot of reasons, and one of them is obviously related to the vermilion bird. So the appearance of the bird is quite striking. It's usually depicted as a majestic red pheasant that glows with never-ending fire. And the red bird is associated with the element of fire, the most yang of them all. Fire represents leadership, intensity, passion, extroversion, joy, and general self-expression. If you want to use Lord Josh language, it is very nonconformist and wild. The planetary relation to fire is Mars, and the organ in this case is the heart. Now, the heart has a much different spiritual meaning than what most occultists in the West would be familiar with. In the Taoist tradition, the heart is the ruler of emotions and spirit. So if something were to happen to the heart chi, it would be totally disastrous. The triagram associated with the bird is Li, meaning flame, and its corresponding direction is south. In weather magic, a southern wind is actually known to be quite weak, but positive during the summer solstice, like that of a light breeze, perfect for a summer's day. Summer, of course, is the season of the bird, a time when the warmth and the heat enables life to truly grow and flourish, a period of growing, if you will, the time of ultimate supreme yang. In Taoist alchemy, the red bird is related to the Shen, the spirit and intention. Its color is red, and red, as many of you will know, is the luckiest color in the Feng Shui system. And speaking of Feng Shui, if used properly, the red bird can bring forth fame and recognition. To do this, place a statue or a flag of the bird on the front of your property. But you must know that you will need quite a bit of flat open space to allow the bird to fly without any trouble. There also exists a little bit of confusion when it comes to the red bird, because quite a few people simply believe it to be a phoenix, and this is partly due to its fairly similar appearance, but rest assured, they are totally different mythological creatures. So my experiences with the red bird have all been overwhelmingly brilliant and positive. I actually became aware of the bird through my master Zhuge Liang about 10 years ago. I think it was about a decade ago now, and at that time I wasn't really knowledgeable about the details and the ins and outs of Magick. So in order for me to improve, I would watch a lot of documentaries, a lot of TV shows, and I would read a lot of books on Kong Ming. And I watched Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and in that show I saw Zhuge Liang's wind ceremony, and he had several flags and banners set up with what I thought was the phoenix. Of course, later on, I realized it was the red bird, and that was a big eureka moment for me, a big moment of discovery, and ever since then I've developed an affinity with the bird, much more so than the other animals. Which is why for weather magic I like to wear a long, wide robe with the vermilion bird embroidered across the borders and around the neck. It makes me feel connected and lively, perfect for this time of year. Remember when we were talking about the tortoise and how it compels me to perform weather spells during the evening time under the moonlight? Well, with the red bird, it's the opposite. I feel like I want to practice in the blazing sun of broad daylight, when the sun's heat is at its peak, and that's an obvious connection to the fiery personality of the red bird. At the start of this video, I mentioned how many new people are jumping on board with these methods for the very first time, and some of you are just finding out about me. I'm very grateful for that, but I also said it to make a point. Since the red bird's a creature that can be used to get more recognition, that's exactly why this is happening. So if you're new here, it's partly due to that reason. Don't get me wrong, Taoist weather magic is still very obscure, but we are definitely making progress. So that about covers the 4 celestial animals of Feng Shui in Taoism. I will speak about the 5th creature in the future, but right now I just wanted to keep it somewhat traditional. I am planning a huge weather working of great importance at the moment, and I'm actually working with storms, rain, and wind. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you a tour of my 7-star altar so you can see all the equipment and gear that I use. So do keep an eye out for the outdoor altar tour that should be here soon. So thank you for watching this very detailed video. I'll be back soon, everybody. Take care.